Speaking task 4 requires you to pull key details from a reading and a lecture listening passage in order to create your answer. There are some ways to make this more easy for you as you're trying to create an answer, understand everything in the reading, understand everything in the listening, and make sure your grammar and vocabulary stay strong. One thing that we can recommend is breaking down the reading passage so that you're highlighting just what's important and you don't waste too much time trying to pull everything out of the reading. So for example, this reading passage question reads, "The concept of altruism refers to situations in which someone or something sacrifices its well-being for the benefit of another creature." Okay, so right there we have this whole sentence that is just defining one word. What word is that? Altruism. A lot of times in academic texts, they'll use a lot of words to say what is essentially very simple and very short. Just this phrase right here, the concept of altruism. So we can just get rid of that. We know we're just talking about the word altruism here. And then refers to situations in which, okay, right now we know we can get rid of this as well because you're just needing to know what altruism is, and they're expanding on the writing by saying two situations in which, and we know we can just focus on what's next. Someone or something sacrifices its well-being for the benefit of another creature. So we've broken down this first sentence and we know altruism is about something sacrificing its well-being for the benefit of something else. So you're doing something good for someone else at the cost of your own life or yourself. Sometimes a creature will do something that helps other species reproduce or help protect others, all while sacrificing their own well-being or possibly their life. So here they're kind of expanding on the idea and they give you some examples. So other species reproduce or are protected at the cost of themselves or their life. And then whenever you see a sentence that starts with ultimately, you can feel pretty comfortable knowing that they're kind of summing up the definition. They're giving you, if you only understand one sentence in this whole reading passage, this here would be the one. The use of ultimately is showing you all this information we've given you, all these big words and long sentences. We're summing it down to this. Altruism is the act of helping another at the expense of self. Okay, so based on this, what are some reading notes we can put together to help our answer? The notes I pulled from the reading are that they are defining the idea of altruism, the idea that you would sacrifice yourself to help others. This can occur in reproduction or in protection, and it can ultimately lead to loss of life. Some creatures can die trying to protect or help another creature. Now let's listen to the lecture and see what notes we can pull from there.
Listen to part of a lecture in a biology class.
So, as you can see from the textbook, altruism is known as altruistic behavior. It describes when animals behave altruistically. It happens when, for example, animals are protecting their own kind by sacrificing themselves to predators. Now, altruism doesn't happen in all species. It usually occurs in kin relationships or species with a complex social structure. One particular animal species in which it does occur is squirrels. Squirrels make a high-pitched sound to alert other squirrels that danger is approaching, and while this helps ensure the squirrel's family survives, it alerts the predator to its own location. This decreases its own chance for survival. Another example of altruism is among ants. An ant can secrete a sticky substance from inside its body. However, it dies as a consequence of doing this. So, an ant shows an altruistic behavior during insect invasions by emitting the sticky substance as a protection for other ants, but ultimately ends its own life.
So in the listening, the lecturer discussed animals sacrificing themselves for others through this idea of altruism. She gave two examples to support this theory. First is squirrels who will make a high-pitched sound to alert other squirrels around them that there is a predator nearby. And secondly, ants can release a sticky substance that traps insects who might be out to harm other ants, but it does cause the ant that released the substance to die. The lecturer also discusses that this is more common among animals trying to protect their kin, and kind of wraps up this idea of altruism through these examples. So we've got our notes from the reading and the listening. What are some grammar points that can help us create an answer that is grammatically sound? So here I have listed some grammar points that can help you slot the information you get from the reading and the listening into a correct and well-worded sentence. So for example, for this question, I could say, from the reading passage, altruism is described as the act of helping another at the expense of self. And then we could talk about the professor illustrating or demonstrating altruism through these examples, in the first example, in the second example, and so on. Having these ready to go helps you to fit information in correctly and not have to worry too much about how exactly you're going to word your answer. You just have to focus on understanding the reading and the listening, and then you can fit them into a correct sentence. The strategies to focus on for answering this question are to start off by explaining the topic according to your notes, and then follow up by explaining the examples in your own words. If you note, the question asks you to it says the professor uses 2 examples to illustrate altruism. Explain how the examples are related to the reading passage. So you have to connect and develop your answer by taking the details from the reading, taking the details from the listening, and explaining how they are related. So let's put this all together in one full sample answer. From the reading passage, altruism is described as the act of helping another at the expense of help. The idea that some creatures will sacrifice themselves to help others, and this can affect them through reproduction or protecting each other, and it can ultimately cause loss of life. The professor demonstrates altruism by giving 2 examples. In the first example, she describes squirrels making high-pitched sounds to alert others that some kind of predator is nearby. In the second example, she describes ants. Ants can make a sticky substance appear that traps insects around them and protects the other ants. However, the ant who releases this substance ultimately will die from its release. Therefore, these examples demonstrate 2 kinds of animals or creatures who can demonstrate altruism by sacrificing themselves in the protection of their kin or the other animals nearby. Okay, so we are right at 60 seconds. We use some of these grammar points to answer and connect the reading to the listening. And we also used our strategies by starting off in explaining the topic and then explaining the examples in our own words, not using too much of the language that's given in the reading and in the listening.